Hey, what's going on, everybody? Good afternoon, and welcome to the seventh edition of Port Richmond when we were kids. I've interviewed already six people, and I already had some people, including a good friend of mine that I went to grade school with, Ricky Eckert, says to me, "Hey, John, when someone get a chance to ask you questions?" So I don't know. Well, Rick, although he offered, um, everybody's work schedule is crazy, so what the heck, I figured I'd jump on here myself. So excuse me from time to time if I look at my phone and uh, read the questions that I would have asked anybody else that participated. So, I just want to start off by saying I'm sure we can all agree that growing up in Port Richmond, from Richmond Street to Aramingo, or even, interviewing Angie yesterday, all the way up to Weichel Street, from Somerset Street up to Allegheny, or even if you want to go from Sion Playground up to Monkevich Playground, everybody's paths crossed somewhere. And I do firmly believe that if somebody took the time and seriously wanted to do a movie about growing up in Port Richmond, it could be easily accomplished because there's so many different amazing stories that each person has and has yet to be told. So I'm here now going to share with you my stories about growing up in Port Richmond. So, I was born in 1973, and I grew up on the 2800 block of Salmon Street, where I believe it was an amazing time because everybody that I grew up with we were within an age or a year or two from each other. I had the Briglios, Nikki and Gary and Celino and Jimmy Conway, and I had Robbie Slavin and Tommy McMonagle and Keith McMonagle, Richie Barzik, Mikey Capo, um, Jay and Andrew Trask and their sister Dorothy, and um, you know one person I'm always trying to get on here up towards the Cohocks area. You have Dave Detro and his brother Tommy, and I knew they had another brother and a sister. So excuse me, I don't really know your guys' names, but I know you're out there. Um, Bobby McAllister. I can go on and on. Just look at my background drop here. Joey Conover, Keith McMonagle, who I mentioned, uh, Brian Seeger. Oh, wrong way. Nicky Briglio, right? Um, yeah, I'm sure we can agree. We grew up during some great times. Um, Even the people before us, if you want to go back into the '60s, all the way to the '90s, after my generation graduated high school. Um, so let me put my glasses on and see here. How far can I remember back into my childhood? I can probably say when I started, maybe around 7, 8, 9, and 10, playing soccer with the Philadelphia Nationals at Monkevich Playground. That was our home field. We played a front and a back, and everybody grew up with, either played at Cahock's or Port Richmond AA or Hetzel's, Fishtown. Um, you know, as you started getting closer to your teenage years, I remember some funny times. Um, I guess in the era where we grew up, a lot of people, well, our houses were old. Some of us had three-story houses, which I grew up in, and two-story houses. And certain time, maybe late '80s, early '90s, a lot of people, because of how old our houses were, started doing some rehabbing. And in our area, a lot of people would throw out old doors. Well, let me tell you, uh, we made the fort of all forts. If anybody can remember, um, myself, my brother Dave, Johnny Vitaccio, Nicky Briglio, Jason May, Tom McMahon, all of us, all the names that I even mentioned before. The parking lot, which is now Tacanelli's parking lot on Thompson and Somerset Street. Let me tell you, I think we made one of the most indestructible forts known to. It even had a lock on it. If we could have probably ran electric to this thing, I'm pretty sure we probably would have. Um, I remember. It was. it was like almost like a maze. And I remember the one area when, as we started getting older and hooking up with girls, we had the one area where I think we even had a curtain there. We called it the love room. So whoever was dating at that time, you had a girlfriend, you brought them to our fort. Um, we had a lot of good times in that fort, and I don't want to say the wrong things, but one of the funniest times I remember, we actually had to move our fort for some reason from the one corner of Thompson and Somerset to the opposite corner of Thompson and Somerset, which is now fenced in yard. I remember we were over there, and if anybody remembers, and again, I'm trying to be politically correct, and I don't want to offend anybody, but there was a guy who was kind of slow in the neighborhood, and his name was Tommy. And I remember being inside the fort the one time, and they must have been messing with him or something because I remember Jason May come. He kind of like dove into the fort and he tried shutting the door, and he's like, "Yo, Tommy's coming in. Tommy's coming in." And he did. He got in. I guess he ripped the front door open and he got inside, and it was like me and Jason May were like kind of like trapped inside the fort. And I wound up getting out. I don't know how the hell I got out, but all you hear was Jason inside the fort screaming. He managed to get out, and Tommy was strong. I mean, he was strong, and he was lifting the fort up and down, and I mean, we were a bunch of wise ass kids growing up. Um, and again, I think that was the start of our early teenage years, and you know, we did a lot of crazy stuff. Um, I mentioned some of my questions being about Halloween, and Halloween, for mischief night into Halloween was crazy. I mean, mischief night, like you set up in the teens, and you would just go from Carroll School to Stokely Playground to Cahock's, and somewhere even in between there, even the library park. I mean, it was just like a huge battle between everybody, and I don't ever recall. We didn't do it the stuff that they do today and damaging property and stuff like that. It was just mainly we would just go after each other, and um, Halloween was huge. I mean, I remember you have to go home and empty your bag just to go back out, and the neighbors on your block within a block or two radius of each other. I mean, everybody knew you, so you got a little bit of extra candy. Christmas was always good. My house at Christmas, a lot of my family lived in Bridesburg. A lot of them lived in New Jersey as well. And I'm sure everybody who knew me, and again, I grew up, you're watching this and you're like, yeah, he looks familiar, but I'm not sure. I grew up with the nickname of Poker, thanks to Kevin Kelly. And yeah, everybody knew my grandfather, who we called Josh. And I lived with him, my entire life, my young life, I should say. And my family would always come to our house to visit my grandfather, my aunts and uncles, their dad, and you know, it was a great time because that's when you got your money. Your aunts and uncles would give you $5 or $10. $5 was a lot back then. And then Easter. I remember my mom would always take us up on the avenue to Edco's, Kensington Ave, and get our Easter outfits. And if you remember the Carroll schoolyard, how it used to be on the Salmon Street side, you had a set of steps there with a railing in the middle. And I always remembered the parents, Richie Barzik and Alex and his sister, and Mikey Capo. I remember our parents used to get us all on the steps there and always take pictures and whatnot. So yeah, they were, and I know we have some of the pictures somewhere. So I think Mikey Capo has them. So Mike, if you watch this video, try to dig them up. We got plenty of or pictures we need to throw up on the Sport Richmond page. Growing up, I went to St. Albert's School. I was probably the only Polak in the Italian neighborhood. Me and my brother, and every day my mom would drive us up. And this is where I met a lot of my other friends growing up. Again, Ricky Eckert, who I just spoke with about a week ago, um, Gorman Keene, Chris Shank. I don't even know if Chris Shank's alive anymore. I mean, there's just a ton of people. We were like, I think we held the record in St. Albert's for the most times being put on a wall for not listening to the safeties, and uh, it's crazy. But let me see what else we have here. You got to excuse me. I'm asking myself these questions. Okay, so sports. Obviously, everybody knows in our area, Port Richmond, Fishtown, Kensington, we were all soccer players. And again, growing up, I always played for the Philadelphia Nationals as well as everybody else did. And a lot of people, other people played for Cahawks or Fishtown. And somewhere along the line, as we got older, we merged into one. And my one memory we had when we started our first select team was with Stokely. And Nikki Briglio's mom, Bernie, and Aunt Marion were our soccer coaches. And I was a goalie, and then we had Nikki Briglio, we had Joey Mert and Mikey Quinn. I believe Mikey Potter played for us, God rest his soul. Brian Glenn. I mean, we had an amazing team. Don't know how we fared. I don't remember how we fared too well with our Stokely team. But after that, we formed Carroll United, which was coached by Gary Briglio and Paul Stackelback and Georgie Mazzacano. And that team was unbelievable. Pretty much all the same names I've named before. And we went undefeated. And I remember our championship game being against Fishtown at Cahawks Playground in Cahawks' gym. And we wound up beating Fishtown, which again, all those guys our age, I guess Nubsy and them guys and Mikey Pot. I can't remember all the Fishtown guys, but let me tell you what, if there was a soccer game for all the ages, for the people we grew up with, that was it. And we won. We wound up beating Fishtown. I believe the goal, what happened was I wound up making a save. I was the keeper, and I remember hitting Joey Mert down the opposite end of the down the end of the court, and I remember him doing a juggle shot and turning and kicked in the upper corner, and I think that was it. I think we only won like 3-2. It was like by like a 1-goal game or something like that. But absolutely amazing times. Uh, so also, the neighborhood, we played baseball and a lot of us played hockey. Um, with baseball, um, me and Andrew Trask and Jay Trask, Richie Barzik, David Primerano, um, we would always play at Cox Playground, and we'd always play the guys from Memphis and Clearfield. And one day they would win, next day we would win, so forth and so on. And the same with tackle football when it snowed. I mean, it was like the Super Bowl for us. Everybody would meet down at the parking lot at Salmon and Cambria, and they were some some really good times and playing bouncies. We at one point we had to stop playing because we used to play hardball in the parking lot until we started breaking windows, and that wasn't fun because then everybody would have to get their shit and run. But going into our young teenage years, as everybody started going into high school, the neighborhoods again all came into one, and it was almost like being on tour. You would either wind up at Cahawks, or you'd wind up at Stokely, or you'd wind up at Sion. And um, I mean, them times speak for themselves. I know it, and I know as we get older, I think out of my group of friends, I was the first to have a daughter in high school, and so I had to make a decision. So at the end of my senior year, I went into the Navy. I went in the Navy for a couple of years, and just when I was sick, I was homesick. I ain't gonna lie, and but it's like, you got to do something. you have a daughter, and then when I was in boot camp, I found out that I was having another child on the way. So I really had to step my game up. But when I came home from the service, everybody was older, everybody was grown, and although it was only 2 years, that was the age where we were able to start going out to bars legally, and Somerset was a main hangout, and that was some really good times in Somersets, and then you had the Playground Saloon. I forget who ran the Playground Saloons. I can't remember. So Port Richmond went through a really big transition at that time, although music started making its loop, because I remember in our early 20s, like disco for some reason was like a really big thing going on. And it was just a good time. I mean, like, again, I mean, growing up in Port Richmond, again, everybody's paths crossed at some time or another. And I know I'm going to miss a lot of stuff I want to talk about. So let's see what we got going on here. Um, so I remember the weekends I post some of these questions on the Facebook group. So I remember coming home from school Friday nights, or hello Friday nights, Friday afternoon, coming home from school, and I think about 4 or 5 o'clock, he would start calling everybody, and the main people I hung out with a lot on the weekends was Robbie Slavin. It would be me, Robbie Slavin, and Richie Barzak, and that was our crew. Like, we would go buy a bubble, or we buy ponies or whatever. And I remember the one time my parents went down the shore, and we were just hanging out at my house, and I think some people came underneath I-95, which we called the back lot back in the days, and found out that nobody was home at my house. Well, Jesus Christ, my house, it wound up being a huge party. Tommy Detro took a shit in my my mom's bed after my cousin came and my aunt came and kicked everybody out. I'm going through my house was like totally trashed. Again, Tommy Detro shit in my mom's bedroom. I found it. It was just an utter mess. Um, it was crazy. Let's see what else we got going on here. It is really tough trying to interview yourself, by the way. But everyone's figuring that I'm interviewing by everybody. So what about me? Let's see. I think that the difference in today's Fort Richmond, again, has probably been spoken even by the six other people that I interviewed. Um, everybody's parents knew you, and if you did something wrong, I'm not saying everyone's parents ratted you out, but if you got caught doing something wrong, you would without a doubt get in trouble by everyone's parents. And with that being said, in today's society, being a parent, if something should happen and you go to confront another parent, or you're ending up in a fist fight. Like, it's today's era is not my child syndrome, and it's crazy time. So you almost have to keep to yourself, and try to as a parent, try to let your kids know, look, don't do something stupid, because you just got to try to correct them yourself. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much. And again, I know I'm missing a ton of stuff because I'm sitting here talking to myself. But I promised everybody I would do my interview. But I want everybody to keep in mind this one thing. It's not about being cool, or not about these videos being stupid. Again, we all know we've lost a lot of great people growing up, and I believe it's important to keep memories alive, especially my own. I mean, just going on 2 years now, I had a cancer scare. I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer, and you know, thank God I'm here today to tell my stories. And again, I'm sure there's a million other things I could talk about, but I'm trying to make it as short as possible. But there are some guys that I mentioned in other interviews, I should say, that I want you guys to come on, man. I mean, there's some real funny stories out there, great stories that should be told and heard, and um, so hit me up on Facebook, inbox me. Some of you guys have my phone number. Um, let's get these interviews in. Um, yeah, I mean, before they're all gone, I mean, we're the next in line, guys. We're 50 and 60 years old. Um, my career is almost over. I'm retiring in a couple years. My wife and I were fortunate enough to have good careers, and we'll be moving out of the country within what fall of 2026. So again, I want to thank everybody who's taken the time to watch these. I want to take the time to thank everybody who's been posting pictures on the Port Richmond when we were kids page, sharing memories. Keep it going strong, and don't be afraid, man. Hit me up. These interviews are only about 30 minutes long. I try to keep it that short. I can see I'm coming up to probably my 20-25 minute mark. But yeah, again, I just want to thank everybody for watching these videos and sharing memories with me. And till next time, see you all again.